You would call upon them to fight. They believe in nothing. They answer to no one. They will answer to the King of Gondor. Andúril, Flame of the West, forged from the shards of Narsil. The blade that was broken shall return to Minas Tirith. The man who can wield the power of this sword can summon to him an army more deadly than any that walks this earth. Put aside the ranger. Become who you are born to be. I summon you to fulfill your oath. None but the King of Gondor may command me.
I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of war and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West!
So I finished my rewatch of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've rewatched these movies twice. The first time I rewatched it was about 2 years ago, I think, something like that, and then I rewatched it now. And I watched it for the first time in 2020. First two movies I watched on my own, and then Return of the King I watched with Zipper Demon, and that was a really good experience. But this time I decided to watch the extended editions, so I'm going to give my review. But before I even do that for the trilogy, I have to say I actually didn't watch the first movie, Fellowship, with the extended edition. I only watched Two Towers and Return of the King extended, so I'm not really going to talk too much about that movie with the extended editions, but I'll still review it. And yeah, we're just going to bring up the IMDb like I always do. Get started. I'm probably going to watch the extended edition of Fellowship of the Ring, maybe this weekend or early next week, because I really want to see it. So yeah, Fellowship of the Ring. But, you know, I should, talk about the movies generally before I do a specific review. And specifically on the extended edition, I want to talk about it. So, I don't know, I'm a little conflicted on them. So, on the one hand, I genuinely do appreciate some of the scenes, and I do think the pacing is better, and there's less, things that you have to infer. But on the other hand, I do think certain amount of the scenes that are added in, some of them happen to be, of a more goofy comedic nature that sometimes doesn't really fit in, and it just didn't seem like the acting was as good as the rest of the film. And then there's another problem where some of the extended edition scenes aren't as beautiful, well done. There's this scene in Return of the King where I love the scene. It's a really cool scene. It's at the Black Gate of Mordor with Aragorn, and he's talking to this guy, and it's not in the normal edition of the film. At least I don't think it is. So this would be embarrassing if I'm wrong about this, but to my knowledge, it's not in the real film. And I just thought the CGI was unnecessary and not that good on the guy's face, because it was a monster from Mordor. And I felt that if it was in the theatrical cut, they would have done it with makeup and stuff. Now, on the other hand, so those are some of the negatives I feel about the extended. Sometimes it's a little over comedic, and sometimes the direction / CGI or whatever isn't as good as the rest of the film. Now, on the positives, like I said, the pacing, there's some stuff that I really feel is really good, and some things I feel like they really shouldn't have cut, like the beginning of Return of the King. They added Saruman's death scene, which you just have to like infer happens when you watch Return of the King. And it's okay in the theatrical cut because it's the beginning of the movie, and the end of Two Towers is like Saruman's defeat, and you just have to assume like, okay, he died. But like not including it in Return of the King is really sad because it is a good scene, but like once again, there's a fireball effect that's kind of like not that good, but otherwise a really good scene. What else? I would just say in general, the extended editions for people that are big fans of it, like why not watch it once? Frankly, it's only about 20 to 30 minutes extra stuff, and while it does say, for instance, I think the Two Towers extended edition was like 3 hours 40 or something like that, but it turns out there's 20 minutes of credits. So just minus about 20 minutes from each of the run times. So it's not as long as it says, but it's still like about 20 to 30 extra minutes. So I think if you're a fan and you're doing a rewatch, like why not just watch the extended edition? I would say on your first try watching these movies, just watch the theatrical because I do feel like they are overall more perfect. But if you're rewatching, just watch the extended. And yeah, so that's like my general opinion on the extended. Like I think they've got lots of good things. I don't think they're perfect, but I do like them a lot, and I like the concept of giving fans some more content there. Now Fellowship of the Ring. So the premise of this movie is pretty simple. It's like a group of friends, like a fellowship, sets out to destroy the ring. And I would say this movie's greatest strength is the direction. I actually consider it like one of the finest directed films I've actually ever seen. I think there's incredible beauty to this film. There's a few scenes that I would consider some of my favorite directed scenes of all cinema. And it's just a really like sort of wholesome and beautiful film that is really a quintessential fantasy adventure film. And I don't want to like read the entire plot, but basically they're traveling, they meet Aragorn, and then there's this fight with the Nazgul in like perhaps one of the coolest kind of like horror fantasy things I've ever seen, with the guys with the blades, and then they stab Frodo, and then he's dying, and then he's taken by horseback by Arwen to Rivendell, where he's healed. And Rivendell is really just like kind of like heaven. It's really beautiful, and it's in the trees. It's kind of up high above a waterfall. And like, my God, just watching these movies and like this movie, which started it all, you're really like, how come they can't make movies like this anymore? Using practical effects, using real filmmaking, real sets, using miniatures, but just using CGI to like scale them up. All this like high production value stuff that's just been all replaced by CGI. And then the faithfulness of the writing, the cast, which is, in my opinion, the best cast ever assembled. You know, let me check my IMDb for a second. I think Zipper Demon and I made a list when we were bored in one of our classes over Zoom, where we would each make a list and we would compare them. Let me see, I think we did one of like best cast. Yeah, see, top 5 casts. And we both agreed actually that Lord of the Rings has the best cast ever, which is, I say that's still true. I can't really think of a movie that's better in terms of the cast, because it's so massive and it tells especially like the second and third movie goes back and forth between different points of view, meaning like we're with Frodo for a while, we're with Aragorn for a while, and we like get all these developed characters that are really played by people that you can't even tell they're acting. Like Aragorn, played by Viggo Mortensen, who's one of my favorite heroes, I would say, is really just perfect as Aragorn. He's so heroic and just, on a sort of collision course with destiny. And it's just so satisfying to see him become king at the end of Return of the King. And this movie really starts it all off. And everybody just looks exactly how you'd want them to look. The elves are, slender, tall, beautiful. They have great hair. They're very magical. Arwen is like really quite special looking. She's very pretty and kind of mythical, I guess I would say. And her romance with Aragorn just feels like really unique and different, and it feels so pure. And I love that. And I just love the scenes where the elves get to show how they're different. And yeah, I guess I've kind of, I should go over a little bit of the beginning of the movie, although I kind of skipped over it. But I would say what this does really well is just, I love how it sets up the whole movie. I love the intro scene where you see the forging of the elven rings. I'm not the elven rings, all the rings. Like, it's like 7 for the dwarf lords or whatever, and then 9 for the men. And that sequence is one of my favorite in all of cinema. I would say it's definitely like a top 50 scene or sequence for me. And then obviously you have the whole Bilbo leaving the Shire and the ring passing to Frodo, and then Gandalf finds out it's the One Ring, and all that is all really good setup. But now that I've talked about that, we can go back to Rivendell, where Frodo is like there. At this time, we also learn about Gandalf getting captured by Sauron in a really, really amazing scene in Isengard, which I love. Sorry. I'm kind of like burping a bit. It's kind of nasty to talk about. But no, it's not nasty. I'm not like actually burping. I'm just think of it as a hiccup, I suppose. I don't like to burden my viewer with unpleasant things. Anyway, let's see. I'm just looking at the synopsis. We learn about Galadriel, and basically the Uruk-hai are formed, and then they're turned on the Fellowship, and then the film ends with the Fellowship being attacked by the Uruk-hai, who are these special orcs, and then basically the Fellowship splits up. Boromir, who's this great character that gets this small arc in redemption, who's tempted by the ring, like all men are, basically tries to steal it, but then he redeems himself by defending Merry and Pippin from the orcs, and he dies in the line of battle. And Merry and Pippin are captured, but Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn resolve to go find him, while Frodo and Sam sort of go off together. But Frodo wants to go on his own, but then there's this great scene which I love and I relate to. Sam chases after Frodo, and he can't swim. Frodo's in the boat, and Sam's chasing after him, and he starts to drown. And he's drowning, but then Frodo reaches out, grabs him, and then pulls him on the boat, and then Sam is like, it's what Gandalf said. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. And yeah, I do relate to this quite a bit, I must say. Alright, so now we go to the Two Towers. So this trilogy on IMDb is 8.9, 8.8, and 9.0. Pretty unheard of. Okay, so let's do the synopsis again. So this one is a lot different than the Fellowship of the Ring. It's much more like going back and forth between point of views because the characters are separated. And alright, so I'll do more of a synopsis on this one. I'm sorry I kind of skipped around on Fellowship of the Ring, but I don't know, that one's sort of more just like an adventure movie that's kind of like not as plot oriented. It's kind of more like getting to hang out with the characters and learning their skills, I guess, and their adventures more. But this movie, there is some very big scenes, so I'll do this one and the next one more in depth. The film begins with a flashback. Oh shoot, I forgot to mention at the end of... Oh, damn it. Okay, well, at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, or close to the end, there's the fight in the Mines of Moria, which is really good, and Gandalf basically dies. But in this film, we go to a flashback back to this scene, and as it turns out, Gandalf is sort of still fighting while in free fall, and it's a really cool scene. And basically, we go to Frodo and Sam, and they're attacked by Gollum, wishing to retrieve his precious from the ones that he thinks stole it from him. I really like this concept of the ring as a sort of stand-in for a lot of bad human emotions like greed, lust, how it like takes control of you. And it's kind of also like the devil, where the ring, well, I guess, yeah, it is kind of like the devil, because if you give in to the devil, he controls you, I suppose. So yeah, but it also is just like coveting something and being greedy. And it's a lot of negative desires from the ring, but I love how obsessed Gollum is with it, and that he really does love the ring, and it's his precious. So the hobbits, Sam and Frodo, bind him, and they tie him with elven rope given by Galadriel and Lorien in the last film. Sam distrusts Gollum and wishes to abandon him, but Frodo understands the burden of this creature and takes pity on him. And this is like the thing I love about this movie, and also The Hobbit and the whole like Gollum arc. I love this concept that, you know, at the beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo basically tells Gandalf like he should have killed Gollum. And then Gandalf was like, don't be so eager to dish out life and death. And he says that it was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand from killing Gollum. And that maybe we shall learn what Bilbo's pity comes to in the future. So, yeah, so basically Frodo continues his uncle's mercy and pity on Gollum and decides to, not kill him. And, yeah, so then we go to a different point of view again. We go to Rohan, where the pack of Uruk-hai run across the grassy landscape with their captives, Merry and Pippin. Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli are in pursuit. Following days of running, Legolas surmises the hobbits have been taken to Isengard. That's that famous meme. They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. I don't know if you know that one. where Saruman is marshaling his Uruk-hai forces to do the bidding of Sauron in the kingdom of Rohan, home of the Horse Lords. King Theoden is mentally and physically weak due to the enchantments of his steward, Grima Wormtongue, who's in the secret service of Saruman. Orcs and wild men of Dunland, incited by Saruman, freely roam the land and kill the people, including the king's only son, Theodred. These people have weird names. Oh my god, this is a long synopsis. I'll try to make it a bit quick. So basically, I'll do a lot of summarizing. Basically, at this time, like, Grima banishes his nephew, Eomer, the king's nephew, and basically lusts for Eowyn, who's his niece, who's a very nice, sweet girl. And basically, Grima has established this, like, dictatorship over the king, and the king is, like, all mentally disabled, and, like, he's really old, and he can't do anything. And at this time, we go back to Frodo and Sam, who are through the Dead Marshes, which is a really cool scene. They're in this, like, swamp, and there's a bunch of dead people in the water. And at this time, you can slowly start to see more of the ring's toll on Frodo. And basically, Gollum's leading them. Frodo's giving him the benefit of the doubt. Sam remains distrustful. I don't know if at this... Let me see something. 1 second. I don't know if at this point in the movie, Gollum has sworn on the ring, on his precious, to, like, keep Sam and Frodo safe. And basically, throughout this film, Gollum progressively becomes more of, like, kind of, like, redeemed as a hero, because it does seem like he is, like, really doing good things for them. But we'll see how that turns out as we go along. Then we go back, and basically the orcs, the Uruk-hai, are attacked by the Rohirrim, and Merry and Pippin escape. Eomer later encounters Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. Basically, Eomer and a bunch of loyal horse riders to him have fled Rohan because of the banishment by Grima. And basically, Eomer says that, like, there were no survivors, and they think the hobbits are dead. And this scene is a little unlikely, but, like, Aragorn manages to, like, see that there's some evidence that the hobbits kind of, like, wandered off. I wish that scene was a little more realistic, but it is what it is. So they surmise that they went into this forest. And basically, while they're in this forest, this wizard who's all in white, who you believe is Saruman, actually turns out to be Gandalf the White, who's been reborn through his fight with this demon Balrog from the first movie, in the Mines of Moria. And then the four of them, so with Gandalf now, go to Rohan, where basically, I almost said Thanos. Gandalf performs an exorcism and, like, saves the king, and Grima Wormtongue is, like, banished and all this stuff. And this, okay, so this is, like, the scenes I love with Gollum. So Gollum is, like, battling his split personality, like, the good and the bad. The bad is the Precious, who's, like, the devil, who has control of him, and he's, like, talking to himself, and he's like, Master is nice to Gollum, meaning Frodo, and, like, he's saying that he has to, like, be nice to Frodo and, you know, uphold his oath to Frodo. And the other half is saying, like, no, we need to kill him and take the Precious. Like, it's ours. They stole it from me. So I love this. I love that he's struggling, and I think he's a really good character. Well, he's, like, a great character for sure. And in this film, he's, like, basically an anti-hero. He's, like, a very conflicted sort of gray character with good and bad, and he's also very monstrous looking. But he does help them, and he does fulfill his oath. So, basically, we go back to Rohan, and basically the king is like urged by Aragorn to fight. And the king is like, no. And at first you think like he's being kind of weak, but I was thinking that he's making the smart decision. He's going to retreat to a fortified fort, basically, a castle called Helm's Deep. And he's going to defend his people there where they have like strong walls and will have a defensive advantage. So he basically evacuates the city. Everyone's going. And then we go back to Rivendell, and Elrond is talking to his daughter Arwen, and he's saying like, it's hopeless to stay. You must go to the Grey Havens, be with your people, basically like leaving Middle Earth, like going to heaven, basically elf heaven. And Elrond shows her a prophetic vision that if she waits for Aragorn, even if he succeeds in destroying Sauron and becomes king, he will still succumb to mortality. Arwen will suffer grievously once he is dead and is left to wither away. She reluctantly agrees to leave. Elsewhere, Frodo and Sam are taken to Henneth Anon and brought before Faramir. Okay, this is good. And this part of the movie is quite a bit better in the extended edition. The scenes with Faramir, who's the brother of Boromir, who's also tempted by the ring, but basically the extended edition fills in the backstory between their father and the two brothers, Faramir and Boromir. And we get to see the hatred of the father for one of the sons, which comes up again in The Return of the King, who is actually one of my favorite characters in this. It's the Steward Denethor, who's this horrifically evil man. And yeah, we'll get to him in the next movie. So basically, Gollum has eluded capture and unknowingly is lured into a trap by Frodo. Faramir basically is threatening to kill Gollum unless Frodo, baits him into a trap, which he does. And at this point, Gollum starts to turn on Frodo, and he doesn't understand that he did it to save his life. In Gollum's eyes, Frodo betrayed him and wanted to, capture him. So at this point, Gollum, basically stops being a hero, and in the next film, he's basically a villain. But he's still interesting as a villain, and we'll get into that more. So yeah, at this point, so Merry and Pippin are talking to this Treebeard guy, and they're trying to get him to go to war with Saruman. And then we have the amazing Battle of Helm's Deep, which I won't summarize directly, but it's got to be probably the best or one of the best. No, probably the best. I don't know if I like Minas Tirith better or not. I kind of do, but in terms of visuals, this one is probably the best fantasy action fight ever. Battle, not fight. It is really just the perfect battle scene. It's got everything. It's very clear. It's epic. It's magical because the elves come. It's heroic with the king and Aragorn doing the final charge before his nephew Éomer comes with Gandalf at the end and saves the day. Really just perfect all around. And the film ends with basically Isengard falling and from the trees, and there's this monologue by I think Merry the Hobbit, and he's gives this great speech about how, here, let me read it. Oh, it's Sam. So Sam is giving a monologue at the end of this film as we watch Isengard fall and the heroes win. He says, "It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing. This shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't, because they were holding on to something." Frodo says, What are we holding on to, Sam?" And Sam says that there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. And this is done over a beautiful, Lord of the Rings soundtrack, and it's like really the perfect end to this movie. And yeah, just a really great movie all around. I would say it's slightly better than Fellowship of the Ring. No movie in this trilogy comes close to the perfect direction of Fellowship, but this one continues the trend of great direction overall. I would say, of all three, I would say this is probably the one that's the least beautiful. But that's kind of not being fair because they're all beautiful. But if I had to pick, everything is strong here. Like Theoden is one of my favorite characters from this, the king who is under the spell. And I love the scene where he's like got out of his possession by Gandalf. He's exorcised. I love I think he's a good decision maker. Like retreating to the fort was a good idea. I love his final charge. He's like a really heroic king. Also his relationship with his niece is really cool. Everything in this movie is just really solid. And I remember after I didn't watch this with Zipper Demon, but I did recommend it. And I remember he was hyped to see the third movie, which we did watch together. And I can see why. It's a very good movie, and it leads in, well, it's a great movie, a very great film. It is in my top 50. Let's see where I put it. I have Fellowship and Two Towers right next to each other. They're at 9.6 out of 10. So I give, it's number 45 is Two Towers and 46 is Fellowship. But I'm actually going to move it up in retrospect. I'm going to move it to 40 and 41 because on my rewatch I realized that it's a little too low. So I'll do that on my own time after this video. But now we move on to Return of the King. Isn't this the film that won the most Oscars? Let me see. Okay, it's tied between Ben-Hur, Titanic, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I mean, Titanic is definitely, I don't think it should be up there. I've never seen Ben-Hur, but I understand that they love epics, so those three are kind of like very epic films. And while I do think Titanic is a great film, mostly on the back of the last half of the film, which is a really amazing action movie with fantastic production, I would say Lord of the Rings Return of the King definitely deserves it more, and I can see why it's the one that won the most Oscars due to its scale. And like I wanted to say when I watched this, one of the things I wanted to make a point of is, like, this film honestly has everything. I don't know if there's one other film that has literally everything in a film. It has, like, romance, It has action. It has battles. It has heroism. It has like sword fights. It has drama. It has complexity. It has moral dilemmas. And it has one thing that even films with all those things usually don't have. It has incredible scale. This movie is huge, and it manages not to be dumb. It's not just stupid, retarded action scenes where everybody just like, everybody just kill everybody, and you can't really tell what's going on the screen. The battles are really well done. But beyond that, it still has the time to be a perfectly made film. Now, I will say, of the three films, this one is the one that has the most visuals that aren't perfect. And that's because it does use more CGI than the rest of the films. But in general, 90% of the CGI is great. 10 is like, it's a little sus. But, yeah, let's get into it. I don't know if I want to do like a super in-depth review. I want to like have some fun with this and talk more about, in general, what I love. I know for Two Towers I did really specific. Wow, this is a long synopsis. So yeah, the opening scene, we see Smeagol and his friend Deagle, and we learn how Gollum first got the ring, where he like murdered I think it's his cousin in the book, or maybe it's his friend, I don't know, he murders his friend, let's say, takes the ring, and the flashback ends, and we're on the outskirts of Mordor, and basically things are bleak, and Gollum is no longer on their side because he believes that Frodo betrayed him, and now he is fully back to wanting that ring. He needs the ring. He needs the precious. It is his. So we have constant tension. He's leading them somewhere. We don't know exactly what it is, but he is leading them someplace where he can take the ring. Oh, and this is the scene that really shouldn't have been cut from the extended edition. It cuts to Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf, Theoden, and Éomer riding to Isengard, where basically it's cut from the movie, the theatrical, but Saruman is killed by Grima Wormtongue, and the what's it called? Oh yeah, the Palantir, which is like a crystal ball, is retrieved, and Gandalf puts it under his cloak. But Pippin is like obsessed with it. He's enamored by it. He wants to look into it. But Gandalf takes it from him. Basically, these Palantirs are like, you can look into other places, and Saruman was looking into Sauron, and he basically like turned evil from it. So it's not to be used lightly. And they ride back to the capital city of Rohan, Edoras, where there's basically a big feast. It's really nice, everything, and they're celebrating the victory at Helm's Deep. And they basically agree that in their heart they know Frodo is alive, and that the quest is not in vain. We go back, and Gollum wakes in the night, and they're basically sleeping on an edge, and basically Sam wakes up to Gollum, like basically he's having one of his episodes where he's talking to himself, and he basically says he's gonna kill them, and Sam is like, we gotta kill him, and he's gonna kill him, and he's going crazy, but Frodo wakes up and he's like, no, Sam, we can't do that, we need a guide. But also Frodo thinks that Sam is just hating him. Because in the other movie, it was clear that he was being a dick. But now they know that Sam knows that he wants to kill them. And now Gollum is really has bad intentions. In the other movie, he was loyal to them until he thought that Frodo betrayed his trust by getting him to be captured. But in this situation, he is correct. But Frodo doesn't know that and doesn't believe it. Sorry, that was my chair. Just putting the armrest down a bit. And that same night in Edoras, Pippin's curiosity gets the better of him. He takes it from Gandalf while he's sleeping, and then Pippin looks into it and he gets possessed, and he sees a vision of a white tree in a stone courtyard set ablaze. But in doing so, he is caught by Sauron and submitted to mental torture and questioning. Aragorn tries to rescue him and has briefly exposed himself to Sauron. Pippin recovers, and it is discovered he did not tell Sauron about the ring's whereabouts. And from the white tree, Gandalf deduces that Sauron is planning to attack Minas Tirith, and he rides to send the warning, taking Pippin with him, and away from the Palantir, which he leaves in Aragorn's keeping. And basically, at this point, we go back to Rivendell, and we see Arwen going to Elf Heaven, basically, but at this point, she has a vision, and she sees her future son, with Aragorn. And at this point, she rides off and goes back to Rivendell, and she tells Elrond that he hid this vision from her, and that she cannot leave Aragorn. She must be with him. It's a very beautiful romance, very unique and magical. And basically, she says the time has come to reforge Narsil, which is the sword that cut off the ring. Isildur's sword, who is Aragorn's ancestor, the king, who took the ring, basically didn't have the strength to destroy it. So they reforge the sword. That's epic scene. I love it. It's such a nice scene. And there's just some visuals in this that are just brings a tear to my eye, genuinely. It's just like, I love the medium of film. It's just so amazing. It's amazing what people can do and make us feel. Gandalf and Pippin arrive at Minas Tirith, the City of Kings, that was built out of the rock of Mindolluin. Okay, I'm butchering that. And basically they see the white tree, and this is an amazing location and looks super realistic, done largely practically with real models and stuff. And at this point, they approach the steward, who is named Denethor, mourning over Boromir, his son. Pippin swears loyalty to him in recompense for Boromir's sacrifice. Denethor seems to be caught up in grief. And basically, the steward is just not doing his job. Like, he's just grief-stricken, and he also doesn't seem right in the head. Like, he is just weird. And he doesn't seem like a nice guy. Meanwhile, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum arrive at Minas Morgul, which is this amazing... Just search it up. I mean, perhaps you don't remember, but you'll remember it when you see it. It's this awesome fort that's like green in Mordor, and it's like one of my favorite visuals ever I've seen in a film. Like, perfect. It really just looks real. Like, it doesn't look CGI'd up. It looks so realistic, but like mystical and otherworldly. And I just absolutely love it. I love the whole scene. And basically they have to climb up this whole cliff of like stairs. And they're also dispatching Nazgul, who are flying on these like kind of lizard things, or like dragons, I don't know. And a flash of lightning comes up, and Gandalf sees it from this fort. And basically, the steward is refusing to light the beacons to call Rohan. They have like a whole system to call their ally if they're in great distress. And the steward is like being a retard, and he's like, no, or just doesn't care. And so Gandalf just ignores what he says and tells Pippin to go light the beacon. And Pippin climbs up, lights the beacon, and another really epic scene where we go across Middle-earth, seeing all the beacons be lit. And then Aragorn runs in the hall back in the capital of Rohan, and he's like, the beacons are lit. Gondor calls for aid. And up until this point, the King Theoden has been expressing some bitterness about that Gondor doesn't help them. But in this moment, he says, in a very epic scene, which is what I love about his character, he says, I think he says, like, then we shall answer, or something really good like that. And yeah, they go off to war. They go off to help defend the world. And Aragorn notices that Éowyn saddles up with them, and that she is grit with a sword, but she insists that she rides only to see them off, and the men have found their captain in Aragorn. At this point, Faramir is at this city on the river, Osgiliath, and they're basically overrun, and they're retreating, and they're being attacked by the flying Nazgul, but then Gandalf comes in and with a beam of light chases off the Nazgul, so they are let back into the city. And then Faramir also tells Gandalf that he met Frodo and that Frodo is in Mordor and all this stuff, so they know that their quest is not in vain. And also, after they captured Osgiliath, they say that send forth all legions to annihilate the population of Minas Tirith. And this scene is the start of a great character that I love, which is Denethor, who's an amazing villain. So the steward receives his son, Faramir, and basically he's just an absolute asshole to his son. He's really, like, hateful, and, like, no matter what his son does, he just hates him on principle. And this, like I said, was further built up in the Two Towers Extended Edition, where we see that Denethor just really doesn't like his other son, and he wishes that his other son died and Boromir lived. And basically, Faramir is less like of a warrior than Boromir was, and he just trusts Boromir with everything, and he just hates his other kid, and I think he hates him even more now that Boromir is dead. So Denethor is, like, terrible, and he's like, you have to go try to retake the city, even though there's no chance. Like, they're overrun. Their best hope is hiding behind the walls of Minas Tirith, and, you know, being logical, like they did in Helm's Deep. Like, you can't just go out with no defense. You need to hide behind walls. But Faramir, obviously, he's bound to his father and the steward, who's the leader, and he must obey his command. But also, he's like this son that's desperate for his father's approval, so he just does it, even though he knows he's riding to his death. So he goes out, and it's a great scene where, like, the women lay flowers at the feet of the horses as they ride off to go to battle hopelessly. And they ride into a barrage of arrows, and we don't see it again for a while. Then, in another scene after this, only Faramir is dragged back by his horse in a death-like coma. He has some arrows in him. So the orcs have sent him back to his father, basically. And now it cuts away and we go to the encampment in the hills with the Rohirrim. I'm exhausted in more ways than one. So yeah, they're in this camp, and Elrond has come, and he unhoods himself, revealing his face, and he presents. Well, no, before this, I think he says, like, it's not enough to defeat Sauron, you're gonna need more men. And then they're in this area where there's cursed men who lived in the mountains, who refused the call to save Gondor, so they've been cursed. And Elrond says that Aragorn must go and face them, and Aragorn is like, no man survives this, and they won't listen to me. And then Elrond says they will listen to their king, and he pulls out the sword that he reforged, the Sword of Kings, the sword that cut off the ring. And then, yeah, Aragorn becomes one step closer to being the king. He has the blood, he has the birthright from the first movie. Now he has the sword. And now he goes to get his men, who are basically... Okay, and this is an amazing scene. They go through the mountains, they face the dead men, and I just absolutely love the... I don't even know if it's animation because it looks so real, but it's the effects of the ghosts. They're just so unique and different. And yeah, he proves to be their king, and they pledge themselves to him. And yeah, he's got his army. And let's see here. Yep, so at this point, Aragorn is departing in a different way than the Rohirrim. Eowyn begs him not to go, declaring his love, or her love, for him. But Aragorn, knowing that Arwen has refused the promise of heaven, refuses Eowyn's love, so he's staying loyal to his love, who's Arwen, sorry. And the next morning, Theoden rides off with 6,000 riders, unaware that Eowyn, his niece, is with them, with Merry, I like him a lot. He's a heroic hobbit who wants to fight, and they're basically riding together on one horse, Eowyn and Merry, the hobbit. And they were both told to remain by the king, so they're disobeying his orders. The Morgul forces, comprised of orcs, begin the siege of Minas Tirith, and this precedes one of the greatest battles. But I don't really need to tell you that battle is great, but it's a fantastic scene. And it's overlaid with, I don't know, this is like one of my favorite crazy villain characters, Denethor, who's in like a trance. He's basically been stripped of authority by everybody. Gandalf knocks him out basically as he's giving like retarded orders, like he's telling the men to like retreat or whatever when they need to man the walls. He basically thinks there's no shot and he's just being destructive. So Gandalf knocks him out, but as the battle goes on, he regains consciousness and he's convinced his son Faramir is dead. Although he's clearly not. Like, he's moving, his eyes are closed, but he's alive, he's breathing. So, he takes his son to the crypts, but he wants to burn him alive, even though he thinks he's dead. But he wants to burn his body, like cremate him. And, basically, this is another great scene. Pippin is like, he's alive, and tries to, like, save him, but Denethor grabs Pippin by, like, the neck and throws him out like a dog. And he's like, I release you from my service. So at this point, Pippin like runs and goes try to find Gandalf and begs him to come save Faramir, who's about to be burnt alive by his father. And they ride up with haste. They break down the door, and he's already like poured all the oil on him. He's burning him. So they jump on him, pull his body down, and save him. And like as Denethor is burning alive, he snaps out of his trance. And he's like, my son. Like he sees his son open his eyes, and he realizes in that last moment his madness breaks as he burns alive. I don't know. I really like that scene, and the whole character is really good. And I got a YouTube short that sort of explained, because if you don't know, like J.R.R. Tolkien wrote like loads of appendices and extra info about his world, and almost like biblical level of analysis and stuff. But he basically explained why Denethor did lose his mind and became crazy. Is there was a Palantir, one of those crystal balls, at Minas Tirith, and he spent years looking into it, trying to defeat Sauron or best him. And while Sauron never took control of him, he lost his mind in the process. And yeah, so that's why he's crazy. But also, you don't really need to know that to enjoy the character, because he's just like this really disturbing father that absolutely hates his son, and he's just convinced that they're all going to die anyway, so he wants to burn his son. And then that last moment where he snaps out of it as he burns, the cleansing power of fire. Yeah, it's crazy, but what a scene. And yes. Sorry. I have a lot on my mind. I apologize. And this is a long video. This is very long. Give me a second. Okay, so yeah, so the battle keeps going, and at this point the Rohirrim come in another amazing scene that's just so iconic. King Theoden, pumps up his troops, and he's gives this whole speech that's just awesome, and then they charge, and then at the same time Aragorn charges with his dead army, and they do win the day. It's an amazing battle. Really perfect. I do prefer it to Helm's Deep, although I do recognize, on a technical level, Helm's Deep is better because of, the less CGI, and sort of, it's more focused and stuff like that, and very concise. But I do prefer this one, so fight me, I guess. Yeah, and there's also this really good scene that I like where Aragorn meets his dead army at the field of battle as in victory, and they're like, you made an oath. You said you would release us after we fought with you and defeated your enemy here at Minas Tirith. And Gimli, the dwarf, who's an absolutely amazing character. I really enjoy the character. He's like, no, these guys come in handy. You gotta keep them, because they're going to Mordor. The smart thing would be to say that, no, you're with me until we defeat Sauron. But because of his honor and the oath he made, Aragorn says, hold your oath fulfilled and be at peace. And they basically die with peace. and they are released from their curse. I really love that scene. I really do love the character of Aragorn. I think he's really just like the perfect noble sort of medieval knight slash king. It's just really, really good character. Oh man, oh sorry. I actually skipped over a big part. During this scene, before the battles ended, it skipped back to Frodo, who was betrayed by Gollum, and he was stung by the spider and all that. You must remember this scene. And yeah, so basically Sam, who was banished because Frodo was pissed at him for trying to kill Gollum, he did not give up on his friend, and he walked back, and he saved him, and he thought he was dead though because he was like paralyzed from the stinger. And Gollum has been like thrown off into the depths, so they don't know if he's alive or dead. I'll give you a hint, he's alive. And yeah, he's rescued, and there's a scene in the Orc Tower, but they escape. And this is a very amazing... This whole scene in Mordor is like... It's really just ingenious filmmaking. Like I said, like the scale of this film is truly insane. And the visuals of Mount Doom and the eye and all this stuff, it looks like it could be real life. It doesn't look animated to me, because a lot of it isn't. It's real movie making, which I just wish like there would be more of today, but I understand how much work this takes. I think they had like 3 years of pre-production, just making models, making the armor, doing all this stuff, like scouting, all this crap. So it was really a really huge project. So yeah, they're trying to go up Mount Doom. They're basically trying to avoid the eye that's piercing them. But they're going up Mount Doom, but at this time, like, Aragorn creates the plan to take the army to the Black Gate to bait Sauron to have his eye on them rather than Frodo and Sam. And yeah, they arrive at the Black Gate. Sam is carrying Frodo up to Mount Doom, but at the worst moment, while they're right there, Gollum has been trailing them again and attacks them. And then perhaps the most beautiful, most complex, most tearful scene of this whole series. Frodo goes to drop the ring in the fire, but even someone as pure as him cannot truly destroy the ring. It's not possible, really, to destroy evil fully. And he says, "It's mine." He puts it on and starts to run away, but the only person that would want it more in that room would be Gollum. So Gollum jumps on him as he's invisible, and Gollum bites his ring finger off. Just sort of like poetic, like it was the finger with the evil on it. So he lost it. That's the thing he lost in the story. But they're basically... Gollum is celebrating in this sort of perverse but also kind of beautiful scene. It's like he got what he wanted after so many decades of being away from his precious. He finally got it back. And he's celebrating and he's happy, but Frodo wants it back and he tries to take it from him, but they fall over the edge into the lava. And Gollum, with his precious, dies in fire. Purified. Frodo survives, but let me tell you why the scene's so beautiful. The scene is beautiful because obviously I said like even someone as pure as Frodo couldn't really defeat evil, defeat the ring. And the only person that could was Gollum, who was saved by Bilbo's mercy all those years ago. That act of compassion, of empathy, of humanity to save this monster, to stay his hand, to have pity for Gollum, ended up saving the world. And also Frodo's like willingness to give this monster a chance, and not always in vain too. Like, for a while he was right. Gollum was helping them, and he did have redeemable qualities. But then, of course, Gollum destroys the ring. He does. In a way, perhaps redeemed. In a way. Although I think the film makes clear that he does have, like, this... He's like a dual personality, basically. He has good in him, but he's corrupted by the ring. And he's also under these, like, misapprehensions where he thinks Frodo has betrayed him. But yeah, just like a really, like, what a scene. And that scene where he's in the lava trying to reach for the ring. Like, wow. It's just, like, so good. And then the whole Mount Doom blows up. Sauron blows up. And lava's everywhere, and they think that Frodo died, Frodo and Sam, but Gandalf comes with the eagles, picks them up, takes them back to Gondor, and then there's that scene with Frodo in his bed where he's like, Gandalf! You know, it's the scene where Gandalf has one tooth in the edit, in that meme. I love that meme. It's so funny. I can't watch the scene without laughing because of it. And yeah, the gang's all reunited, and this is also a scene I absolutely love. Aragorn is just crowned. He's crowned king. And he's reunited with Arwen at the end. But I love the scene where he's coronated, and the tree, which was prophesized, the dead tree, was prophesized to bloom once a new king had been chosen after all those centuries. It starts to give leaves as he's crowned. It's just absolutely beautiful. Another small detail I love is during the actual battle, it pans up to the dead tree and you see one tiny flower, which is like gives you hope that they will have a king again. Hope is not lost, but in this point the trees come back to life. It gives flowers, and he meets Arwen. And then there's the great scene where the king meets the hobbits who bow to him, but Aragorn says, "You, my friends, you bow to no one," and everyone bows to them. Okay, let's see, yeah, so at this point, where are we? Aragorn's crowned. Okay, there's a new age of peace. The hobbits return to the Shire, where Sam marries Rosie Cotton, who's the girl from Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo, having written his entry in the Red Book of Westmarch, calls it the Lord of the Rings, and he is still suffering from the effects of the ring. Having possessed it for so long, he realizes that there'll never be peace in Middle-earth. So he decides to go with Gandalf, Bilbo, Elrond, and Galadriel to the Grey Havens. He passes the book on to Sam to record the years of his life to come, and hence the last ship to leave Middle-earth sets off, pulling slowly away from the shore and passing along the straight road into the uttermost west. Pippin and Merry take their leave, and Sam is left staring into the golden sunset. In the last scene, Sam is shown walking back to Bag End, where he's greeted by Rosie, his wife, and his children. Surrounded by family, and with the rest of his life ahead of him, Sam sighs and says, "Well, I'm back," and then goes inside and shuts the door as the screen fades to black. Somewhat of a bittersweet ending, where you lose a lot of the main characters you love, and they leave Middle-earth. But overall, just an absolutely amazing movie that is number 14 on my list, which, believe me, is hard to do. And any of the movies really in my top, I would say like top 25, even more so than that, but I would say anything in my top 20 something. I really just have a really special place in my heart for these films. And I'll leave my top 20 or top 50 in the description below if you'd like to see it. It hasn't changed much. There is no point in just doing recency bias. I only change it when I'm sure. But one thing that stayed the test of time is number 14, Return of the King. I sometimes debate whether I like it better or worse than Eyes Wide Shut, but I think I do like it slightly better. It's a really special movie, and I think this trilogy is like the epic of our generation. A really perfect, I say our generation, I mean, I was like 1 year old when this came out, so let's actually see when it came out. December 17th. I was like a little over 1 year old. And the epic of our generation for sure, but just all around a perfect film. There's really basically nothing wrong with it other than, like 10% of the CGI being a little worse than it could have been. But an absolutely fantastic film that I was really honored to watch with my brother. And yeah, so I have very good memories from it. And I did watch the extended edition, which I think is like 4 hours. When you take away the credits, which were about 20 minutes, I think it's about 4 hours long. And although I did watch 1 hour the day before, and I watched 3 hours of it the day after, it doesn't feel like a drag to me. I mean, yes, it is a slow film, and it does take its time, but it's really quite perfect. And it's hard to believe that such a thing was even put together. Like, it seems like something impossible nowadays to adapt a source material as grand as this and not screw it up. There's 3 movies, like one of them is bound to be significantly worse than the rest, but nope, it's just like each movie kind of gets better and better in my opinion. Especially the last one is just like next level. Yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed this. It was a long time, and I kind of summarized Fellowship a lot, but I think I said some good stuff there, in my opinion. And yeah, thank you for watching. Saucy Boy, out.